Welcome to episode 807 of the Barcelona Podcast, brought to you by the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I'm Dan Hilton, and I've got good news and bad news for you. Bad news, of course, is the big stuff. Barcelona's out of the Champions League. But the good news is, while we are kind of doing today's eulogy, we're doing a little less match discussion and more about the big picture ideas, because I think Diego Loreen and I might have, oh my gosh, Diego, I'm so sorry. I almost slipped into a Diego Simeone again. I think I'm still seeing the guy in my nightmares, but Diego Loreen and I might have some solutions for you. So, of course, to help me do that is, and I hope everyone is enjoying our bi-weekly, home and home series that we've been doing for the last few months. I think it's really working great. So, of course, it's Diego Loreen again from D-Spot. It's your Barca Insider. Diego, I know I don't usually ask you how you're doing, but I know you're probably feeling the same way I am. Like, okay, so the season, I put quotes on that because I don't think the league is totally done yet. People are taking that for granted, but yeah, the season with air quotes is all done. But there's still football to be played, and there's still big ideas to talk about.
Dan, there's still 2 months of football to be played, more or less. And I think it's wrong and I include myself, wrong for us to think that the season is over, that we're going to be league champions, even though mathematically 9 point gaps have not been recovered at this point of the season in the entire league history. So I think we can feel confident, but also still know that there's still games to be played. We have to play away in the El Coliseum against Getafe, and El Sadar against Osasuna. The Clásico is, of course, looming as well. And there's still football to be played. Back-to-back league titles would be fantastic, but before we can celebrate those, let's take care of business first. And I have to say, Dan, I mean, I think I speak for all culés when I say that the fact that the Whites have been eliminated from the Champions League makes it, all the better, or it is soothing someone for the soul. Yeah.
When we talk about La Liga, and I think that's kind of been my stance since month 2 of the season, even when Barcelona were trailing in the league this season. You can, if you only watch Barcelona, you can find fault in this blood-grounded team. You can.
Yeah.
But I tell you, if you think Real Madrid are going to win the title and make up that 9 points over Barcelona, like, yeah, sure, we have our reasons why Barcelona might be able to choke up a +9. But again, watch Real Madrid, and then you'll see why they're not going to make up a 9 point gap, right? I think even their Champions League against Bayern Munich, sure, they were, they were very much like Barcelona. They were on the precipice. It looked like it could happen, and then it didn't. And red cards kind of doom both of them. And as the meme with George Lucas says, it's poetry.
I mean, red cards doom both, but also what Madrid proposed in terms of football, I think, doomed them, even though it's brought them success in the past. I know we're going to talk about this more now, but Bayern were the better footballing side. And in the end, the classic statement of football won on the night. Thank goodness. Like, good riddance, you know what I'm saying? Because Bayern were the better side. There's no doubt about it, even though Madrid put in a valiant effort, and I was very much, I was fearing that they could pull off a remontada and book the ticket to the semifinal. Football won in the end, and to go back to what you're saying to La Liga, yes, I do agree, but I remain cautious. I don't want to jinx nothing. I don't want to sit here and eat up my words and find out that, the miracle happened and the inexplicable, and Madrid make up a 9 point gap and end up winning this league. That would be atrocious, Dan. Oh my God. Can you imagine that?
No, because again, historical precedent said that it wasn't going to happen. I mean, and going back to the Atletico Madrid stuff, well, I think going back to Atletico Madrid stuff, that's kind of not to say one of the things that kind of, I don't know. I always say with history, Diego Simeone, and the reason why Atletico Madrid were able to advance, I think really is big picture. We're going to look back and say that Diego Simeone, after 14 years, was finally able to beat Barcelona at the Camp Nou. And yes, a red card is very, very helpful to that. And we look at the matches as isolated thing, but having now taken 2 steps back or 2 days and 2 steps back from the tie, I can say that, yeah, Diego Simeone in that first leg, it was unprecedented. He was, despite, again, the help, was able to get that miraculous win over Barcelona. The first time they had beaten Barcelona in almost 20 years at the Camp Nou. And, You see that and you go, wow, that is really something. And then going back to Atletico Madrid, as we saw, it was going to be a challenge. It was going to be difficult, but it was possible. And then, of course, a red card is what made it not possible. But to that point, when we look at the Champions League in the macro, having watched all of those different ties, I think when it came to Barcelona Atletico Madrid, I think a really good team advanced in Atletico Madrid. I think people are almost underrating them. I want to make sure as a Kool-Aid, I do not underrate what they are. Like, they are not a defensive team. They have scored more goals in this Champions League this season, with the exception of Bayern Munich and PSG, right? I think the two who are even greater favorites than them. And so they have done their job. They're not as defensive, but they also can put in a defensive shift, as we've seen. So they have this ability to play in multiple different ways. When it was time for them to go out and score a ton of goals in the Champions League, they did it. When it was time for them to batten down the hatches and, play the way we expect them to play, the Diego Simeone way, and be tight and block shots, they did that too, right? So I want to make sure I even begin this by crediting Atletico Madrid, even though, and I say this with full voice, Barcelona were the better side over 180 minutes, not just 90 minutes, but 180 minutes when they were down to 10 men on two different occasions. They were still the better side. And so the other one I look at with PSG Liverpool, that one was another time where football kind of won the day and it wasn't close with Liverpool. And then to your point, Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, the better team and the better football playing side won that one. And then Arsenal Sporting CP. I was either having a root canal or watching that tie. I couldn't tell which one I was doing. They were both equally painful. So it's this weird thing where I'm like almost ready to back Atletico Madrid, but the way that Arsenal is winning the Champions League, like, I'm a fan of what Arsenal represented under Arsene Wenger, like French-flowing football, Thierry Henry, Bergkamp, and I know that was 20 plus years ago. I know that I'm showing my age and my affection for them, but going all the way up to, really the last like 3 years, and now what Arteta is doing and how he could potentially win the Champions League is like it's baffling to me. But it does show you Arsenal that if Arsenal do really going back to the macro idea of how you win the Champions League. Like, if Arteta does pull this off, you go, wait a second, is that like that thing, that version of football is certainly not only maybe a viable way to win the Champions League, but like a recommended way to win the Champions League in a way that Barcelona's version and philosophy, and this kind of is our big idea today, maybe it's not as successful. And, I want you to respond to that. And then I want to set up, again, kind of a deeper analysis of that from one of my best listeners in Dirk.
I mean, there's so much in what you just said. Just to go back to almost wishing that at this point in time that Atletico would win their first Champions League title. Funny enough, I shouldn't maybe be sharing this personal anecdote, but this morning when I had the chance to vote, there was, whether it was Twitter, I don't know where it was on social media, but you could vote which team you would want to win the Champions League. I actually caught myself voting for Atlético de Madrid. And that might be something to have to do with, in one way, certainly the respect that I have for Atlético de Madrid, their history, the fact that they've been so close so many times. I mean, you remember when Atlético de Madrid won the league title in the Camp Nou, even though we should have won that league title if we go through the course of that game, the phantom goal, the goal that was disallowed. The Camp Nou stood up and applauded the efforts and the league title for Atlético de Madrid. Now, to go to the Arsenal bit and kind of what the main theme of this show, what is more successful, what is more prominent, what is more what is proven over the course of history to bring more titles, more success over the course of time. It's something that I spoke about with Graham Hunter yesterday when I got a chance to sit down with, in my eyes, the GOAT of Spanish football. And I asked him very directly. I said, look, I'm an 80s kid. I was plugged into the football matrix in 1988. I'm Dutch Spanish. And I remember vividly seeing my boys in orange winning the 88 Euros. Subsequently, obviously, Johan Cruyff's Barça winning the European Cup, as it was called at the time, the league titles consecutively. Barça winning 5 Champions League trophies, Spain as well, the Euros and the World Cup. And even though those are glorious and have been great for a fan to watch, I can't help but feel that over the football history in its entirety that a more pragmatic style of football, a lesser daring style of football, is inevitably more successful than those teams that take a proactive approach, an offensive approach. And that is something that we should think about. With the praise that you also gave Diego Simeone there, I have to agree. The fact that the goals that we've conceded over the course of this season under Hansi Flick almost look carbon copy of themselves. It goes to show that there's a transition into defense problem that Barca have, right? There's something there that makes us more vulnerable in these transitions into defense. And that has to be corrected. That is something that Cholo has indeed learned from and has indeed managed to correct. He is not just an ultra defensive side. He's managed to find a balance, at least for Atlético de Madrid, that is almost perfect when it comes to offense and defense. Now, I'm not saying that that is the style of football that I enjoy the most, that I want to see Barça play. I take pride in the fact that we are a club that, demand not only titles, but a good style of football, right? Call it football total, call it tiki taka, whatever label you want to brand it as. I want to be entertained, Dan. And that is most clubs now, most teams, and even at a national level, you look at England, you look at France, for example, or Holland. I mean, Johan Cruyff would be rolling around in his grave right now, Dan, looking at how Ronald Koeman is having this Dutch side play football. And for me, that is not the way forwards. But, we're going to talk about this now. What is more successful ultimately? Well, I do think that the reactive style of football, the more simplistic style of football, does bring you more success, especially in knockout tournaments.
Well, the way that Ajax has been running their business over the last few years, I'm surprised that Johan Cruyff hasn't been reincarnated yet. I'm surprised he hasn't literally popped up out of the ground and tried to burn the club down at this point with the way Ajax is going on. But yeah, I mean, I find with the Champions League in this big discussion, and again, I think we can go in a lot of different directions with this, but let's start in this direction, that Bayern Munich and PSG, to all of their credit and the money that PSG have especially, they have squads that do allow them to play in multiple ways. Like they and I think the to be very, very short with it, it's can you absorb pressure? Can you absorb pressure and survive? And this Barcelona team under Hansi Flick for the last two seasons, they create more chances than anybody else in world football, right? And they win matches if they take their chances. That is a unequivocal statement. There's no one in world football, no one mathematically that beats Hansi Flick's side when they take their chances. But as we know in football, the reason why XG is a thing, why expected goals, expected assists, it's hard to take all your chances, right? And I think instead of criticizing when players don't necessarily take chances, even think of Ferran Torres. Ferran Torres getting all his hate on the internet, and this guy scored 3 goals in the last 2 matches, right? And gave Barcelona a chance, and you talk about confidence, whatever. Ferran Torres is a really good footballer.
Was in this last match?
Yeah, exactly. Ferran Torres is a really good footballer, and he showed you in a really big moment with a lot of pressure, scores that goal, all those things. And Lamine Yamal, same thing. People are Lamine Yamal can't handle, it's crazy. Because the 18-year-old kid, he had one moment in either tie where he dribbled through at least 5, and if he scores those goals, those are all-time Champions League goals, unequivocally. It's going to happen for him, sure. But in what way and in what side is it going to have that? And it's funny when I talk about Bayern Munich, now I do want to shout out Dirk here, and people are watching, I'm almost going to be reading this because he had so many great ideas here that he said, I do watch hockey, and I know a lot of my listeners are not caring about the NHL. But in the NHL, they basically have the same thing where you accumulate points over the course of a league. And the team that wins the most points over the course of a season wins the President's Trophy. But they have a thing in hockey over the last 13 years called the President's Trophy curse. No team that has won the regular season has won the Stanley Cup. And meaning if you're the best team and the most consistent team over the course of 82 games, the playoffs come and there is luck and there is variance. And so in 13 years now, no team that has been the best in hockey over the course of 82 games has won the playoffs, right? Wow. And we take that and we kind of reapply it to football, that you look at Guardiola and his winning record and his, not even winning record, but winning percentage at Bayern Munich, at PSG, and then you go, how many Champions League trophies did that guy have? Right, like the guy that really fundamentally, and the difference between Guardiola at Man City and Flick at Barcelona the last 2 seasons is that the financial reinforcement has been there for Guardiola to succeed in his style the way he's had to. And it's funny to watch now Pep in the last, even I'd say about 2.5, 3 years, kind of adapt a little bit and say, well, we have had these great squads. Like, can we figure this out? And as he's trying to kind of tweak his own stuff, he's struggling to get results that he even had in recent seasons, finishing likely second in the Premier. Well, I don't know about that now. So, yeah, exactly. So you would talk about, +9 if it was whatever Arsenal, Man City. That was a different story. But yeah, it's interesting to me when we're asking these big questions about now the question I want to propose to you, which is kind of hard and long-winded to answer, but regardless of what Barcelona can do in the transfer window, like, can transfers plug these holes? Can they give them not only the depth, but are there particular profiles or talent that could help Barcelona sustain themselves in the transition periods, in the moments when they don't have control of the ball, in those moments of chaos, which have been Barcelona's Achilles heel for now going on 11 years in the Champions League? Like, you can point to individual moments in every Champions League over the last 11 years, and you go, well, if that refereeing decision 50-50 went Barcelona's way, then they would have won that match. But I think over the last 11 years, it's also time and time again, you go, in transition, Barcelona had some issues, right? And so does Barcelona need to change their style completely? Or are there transfers, are there players, are there answers out there in the market that could fortify this team and have them more prepared for those moments of chaos?
Yeah, look, I think both things can be true, meaning Barca need to reinforce their squad in certain positions, and refereeing decisions, it would be nice if at some point in time the wind would blow in our direction. And I think I didn't see this, I read this, so I don't know if this quote was paraphrased or interpreted, but it looked like Thierry Henry was asking the right or demanding people to ask the right questions, referring to the refereeing decisions. And I say this because we have to take that into account. I don't want to make it the fundamental point, but we also know that Barça in its history, every time that we have won the Champions League, we have hemos rozado perfección. We have we've basically been a perfect and flawless team.
Yeah, I've been saying that, Dave. I've been saying that for years now, and Dirk even mentioned it to me that my adage has always been Barcelona has got to be the best team in Europe to win the Champions League. That has just been a fact across the board, going all the way back to 1961 against Benfica, to 1986. Again, this is not when it was the Champions League, but when it was the top European prize. If Real Madrid counts them, they count. So yeah, 1986 against Bucharest, 1961 against Benfica. Like, Barcelona have got to be the best side. I mean, they're even back in the early 60s, 62, 60, so the year after Benfica when they were in the final, and then the year after that as well. There were reasons why Barcelona should probably have been the best side there, and they just weren't. And just because they just weren't the best, things didn't go their way. And again, now we're going back 60 plus years when we're having that conversation. So yes, they have to be the best team, and they will not win the Champions League.
Exactly, then. And it's still relevant today. The philosophy is to outscore our opponents. Now, but if we're getting our options up front limited or ruled out because of a certain person's subjective interpretations, well, that hinders our game plan, doesn't it? Now, that being said, yes, obviously there's a lot that we can improve defensively. At this point in time, it's not even a hot take anymore. We've been talking about it all season. Yes, we need a seasoned defender. Yes, we need a central defender that is good with his left foot to complement the Pau Cubarsí, and that is experienced enough to and has the authority to be an extension of Hansi Flick and Inigo Martinez 2.0. My God, like it's we know that Barça, in particular defensively, but I would say as a whole, we're weaker this season than we are last season. And one of the big reasons for that is, one, the departure of Inigo Martinez, and two, because of the extra year that Lewandowski is carrying on his knees and his legs. That being said, obviously also, that's perhaps oversimplifying it. It's also true that Ferran Torres, Rafinha, are not scoring as many goals. Lamine is carrying even more weight on his shoulders than he did last season. So there's other areas where we need to improve or add some extra solidity and ¿cómo se dice esto? Like reinforcements. But if we look at our midfield, I think we are in a great shape. If we look at our forwards with the number 9 as an exception, I think we're in a very good space as well. I would prioritize the central defender and the wing back position, whether that's left or right. I'll leave that up to Hansi Flick and his team. I don't know if we can go another year with the Cancelo. I don't know if Alejandro Balde is really that guy that we can bank on and count on, defensively speaking. I think offensively he is, even though also there the consistency is maybe not as, sorry for the redundancy, but consistent as we want it to be. But yeah, sorry, I forgot what was the origin of this point that I'm making here.
Well, it was a broader idea, and I do want to kind of make it kind of about this tie here again when we're talking about like what is solvable and what might not be solvable.
Right. So sorry, Dan. The depth, right? You were talking about squad depth. We have to have the budget and the ability to, of course, acquire also top talents from the world, from South America, from Europe, etc., Africa. Yes, of course, we cannot just rely on homegrown talent, despite the fact that they have punched above their weight and outdone themselves massively, tremendously. The youngest team in the Champions League competition, Gerard Maldini, that has been reinvented, Eddie Garcia, that has been arguably, if not the best, one of the best central defenders, Spanish central defenders. You know what I mean? Like, I think these guys have just done everything possible in their capabilities to be up for the task, but we cannot compete against those that have deeper pockets. No.
Yeah, I want to talk about the system and the style aspect real quick, because when we talk about Barcelona's defensive frailties, and you said the carbon copy goals. So in that tie, it was an unbelievable free kick by Julian Alvarez. Sure. That happens right after the red card to Paco Barça. So Barcelona also defending that free kick with one less person. And I think Julian Alvarez probably from that spot scores it anyway. But should he have had the ball in that spot to begin with is a good question. I mean, I think still yes, because as I said, I think that it's still potentially like a yellow on the contact if you're going to give it. But anyway, we're not going to be able to get that. Point is, he scores that free kick. Great. Fine. You should be able to survive one free kick goal by Julian Alvarez. The other two goals that were scored, the Sorloth and the Lookman, those were both in transition, but those were also on opposite sides. So the one comes down Lamine Yamal and Koundé side, that being the Sorloth goal, and then against for Lookman, that comes down Cancelo side through Llorente and then Lookman, right? And so I think not to again blame necessarily Koundé or Cancelo or the fullback or whoever the center back is coming over into that space, or also the midfielder in the double pivot who is required to be that extra bit of help and to track those men and to track those runners and hand them off to the center backs in transition. It's a really difficult thing to ask of a fullback to be completely focused and positionally aware for 90 minutes. And very much like a forward,
especially a Barça fullback.
Yeah. Exactly. So the market up top and the 9, and not to say that certain positions on the field are easier to replace than others, but to find a fullback that can keep that focus for 90 minutes and be positionally sound for 90 minutes while playing with the ball, controlling the ball, and supporting the attack, right? That's a really, really hard ask of any forward, and I mean, of any fullback. And other than of what I've seen for the last 2 seasons, other than their name, Nuno Mendes for PSG, I don't know if there's another fullback that can actually do that in the Champions League over the course of 180 minutes from what I've seen for the last 2 seasons. And then going up to the number 9 position, I saw there was quite a bit, even though Arsenal are advancing, the amount of Goretzka's hate, and I might even be mispronouncing his name because I feel like commentators mispronounce his name, but the amount of hate that man is getting, because everyone warned Arsenal. They're like, that guy there's going to be problems, and there are problems, but it is a larger microcosm of the striker market that whoever Barcelona bring in, I promise you, you're going to be mad at them. Like you're going to be mad at the chances they miss because striker, and maybe because you and I are a little spoiled, but I don't know what it is. Like that's another big question idea that I don't want to get into. We don't have time for. We can do that over summer. But like the striker market and strikers as they are not the same generation that we saw. That where like Fernando Torres right now would be like a top 5 striker, and the generation he was in, he was like what, a top 20 striker, right? And you could even argue like, was he actually like a natural striker, a natural number 9, right? So the game has changed as well, and I think positions have changed too. But so for Barcelona, well, as you said, it is right. A thing can be two things, as Daryl Grover, the Toll Sox always says, like a thing can be two things. That's true. And so Barcelona will have to reinforce their depth and their squad and just be able to control or try their best to control these different adaptations. But what we do know is that you do not want to limit Lamine Yamal in the way he plays. You don't want to limit the way that Pedri plays. You don't want to limit the way that I hope that Gabi is playing. And I guess let's just take for a second here. Over these 180 minutes, or not 180 minutes, but over the 180 minutes with Gabi, awesome. I mean, when we're being positive about things, and I'll also say too that I said it was huge in the first leg and huge in the second leg. Those moments of transition, he's not ready just yet, but Marc Bernal's rest defense and Marc Bernal's ability to help Barcelona, especially on set pieces, be prepared in that rest defense. This tie kind of told me that Hansi Flick, if you can find a way, and you can't, but if you can find a way to put Pedri and Gabi and Bernal on the field at the same time and have all three of those guys be healthy, I don't think football's next season going to have a better midfield if you can find a way to get those three on the field together.
I'll go one further, and I think Frankie might realize that too and check out this summer. I don't know. I really like Gabi, Pedri, and Bernal, and that is my trio for next season.
I mean, I don't want to make you roll your eyes here, but I'll give you 2 words as to why that's not going to happen. And I'll give you 1,000 guesses, and can't imagine you're going to guess the 2 words. Can you give me one guess as to what you think those 2 words might be?
Contract.
Very close. Deferred wages was the
Deferred wages.
Yeah. I think that might be the one and only. Well, yeah, maybe, yeah, right. Wages and beach. Yeah, right. Those are actually the 2 words. But for De Jong, I don't know though. With all his injuries in recent seasons as well, and Rafinha, to kind of couple Rafinha's going to be making a lot next season, by the way, too, if he's not fully healthy. So between De Jong and Rafinha, that's how we talk about depth, though. They shouldn't be going anywhere. Like Barcelona should have actually, like, even if those two are not like guaranteed starters all the time, it's a reminder that like Barcelona have had over this last season or multiple, whatever it is, like Gabi's been missing almost full seasons. Pedri, if you already count the amount of time he's missed at Barcelona, that's a full season. Rafinha this season has missed, 14, 15, 1,600 minutes that you had him last year for, and you don't have them this. Like, if Rafinha is healthy for this tie, like, it takes Barcelona's, when they went in, they were 65% favorites, I thought. Then they take that to 75, and then maybe maybe we're talking about 2 extra goals from Barcelona and Barcelona moving on, and we're not having to litigate. Well, Olmo was definitely pushed. Facts, right? Did Eric Garcia get enough of Sorloth to bring him down? No. Was Cooper right? Like, instead of litigating these individual moments, Barcelona just scored 2 more goals and it's over. And I think that's kind of what Bayern Munich did to Real Madrid in those last 10 minutes there, right? Where it was a tie, it was 4-4. Kamavinga got the red card, and then Bayern Munich said, "Yep, thanks. We only need 5 minutes." And then Luis Diaz and Olise's goal was probably even better than Luis Diaz's. And like it was over, right? It was like you blinked, and the better team had an extra man, and it was over. Because there was, when I was watching that, a fear that I was like, I don't know if, oh man, Real Madrid really going to do this on 10 minutes, right? I don't know. We don't talk about that.
Yeah, exactly. We don't need to talk about that. I definitely feared that they would. But just to circle back to Barca's midfield and the Frankie de Jong, I was saying problem or issue or situation. The reason I say that as well, Dan, and it's similar as to why I'm hopeful that the Lewandowski contract extension will not come into fruition is because of their wages, man. You know, Barca can do a lot of damage and movement in this market, in the transfer market, and with their team, if they are just able to get rid of the quote unquote dead weight or just the big heavy contracts. And unfortunately, De Jong is one, and also Robert Lewandowski is, I think, the biggest one of the team. And you know that better than me. We have Casado.
I guess my argument about De Jong though is different. Like Lewandowski's contract
But
is
also,
up.
just the final point there, De Jong, I am scared he will not accept a secondary role at this point of his career, right? I don't think that he will accept coming off of the bench. And then what kind of situation in the dressing room do you create?
Yeah, I mean that's right. That's the question. And right now, it looks like in total he's on 25 million euros because of those deferred wages, which is way too much for a non-starter. That's like a fact. But because of those deferred wages, because of that contract being extended to 2029, to even make those manageable, those wages, I mean, for De Jong, he's not going anywhere, right? That's like a choice that he has to make. He's not going anywhere. And so the tough thing with De Jong is that it's true. Like, will he be happy? And yes, it doesn't set the Barcelona up for success. It does not set their wage bill up for success. But as an individual, like it is his choice. He just had a baby last year, so it's like, and he loves Barcelona. He wants to be there. He loves the club, so it's like he has no reason to go. And I that is a hard thing to right. It's a hard thing to say. But is he really taking a secondary role? That's kind of the point I'm mentioning about all the different games that Barcelona play. Like the last few seasons of the Champions League, where you and I spent all this time discussing and arguing, like, what is the best 11 for Barcelona? We spend the whole year doing that. And other than you and I saying, well, I don't think Casado's really in there, other than things like that around the edges, like, look at the back line. We're at a point where, like, well, Araujo's going to be necessary because of a suspension, or again, Christensen wasn't even part of the conversation this season. And then in the midfield, it's like, oh, well, yeah, De Jong's going to be whatever. But like the way that the last two seasons have gone, I'm going to say, hey, next spring, De Jong, Bernal, Pedri, Gabi, whoever of those three is healthy, yeah, or two of you, whoever two is healthy, y'all are starting. That's it. Fermin Lopez and Dani Olmo were both fortunately healthy in the second half of the season, so Hansi Flick got to not only decide, but then he had to pick two of those. Instead of being able to pick one of them, which drastically changes the way you play, he had to pick two because you don't have a left winger in Rafinha that really is like that starter, because what Rashford has been is a substitute for FC Barcelona. The problem for him is that a substitute for Barcelona on the winger probably needs to be around 7 million euros. But if he even is signed, he's not going to be on 7 million euros. He's going to be on 12 to 14 million euros. And that's too much to pay for Rashford, who is a non-starter for Barcelona. But definitely, if Barcelona next season have won the Champions League trophy and they're holding it up, I can see Marcus Rashford in that picture, right? Mm-hmm. But I don't see him as a starter for Barcelona in that picture. Does that make sense? Like he's of the level, and I think it's a weird conversation we always have with Barcelona, where you're going, there's starter Barcelona level, there's non-starter Barcelona level, and then there's like, maybe that guy probably isn't like fit, like, fit enough for Barcelona. Maybe he doesn't, he's not of the level to be there. And over the years, there hasn't been that many of those players, but like, we just lived through that. Again, no disrespect to Martin Braithwaite, no disrespect to even Ferran Dukla, like no disrespect to those guys, but like, they weren't winning, they're not playing major minutes for you and you're winning a Champions League trophy. Like that's what we say when we say not the level.
See, yeah, I mean, not to digress here and pinpoint on Marcus Rashford too much, but I have to say, ever since we had the podcast, you and I, where we discussed Marcus Rashford's output or I should say input for the team as well, the defensive sacrifice, we had this discussion that, hey, he's being singled out by Hansi Flick, after being asked, of course, about, his defensive abilities and the lack thereof. And I said, look, for him, it's do or die. If he doesn't get the message that he has to step it up defensively, he's going to be out the door, or he should be out the door. For me right now, and it's nothing personal, I think he's a lovely person who has done his best to integrate even culturally and with the team, and has put up good numbers offensively as well. But he's not the winger that we need in order to win a Champions League trophy. I'm out on Marcus Rashford. I'm not going to pay 30 million for him in Famdeco, no.
My concern is, what it's been for the last two seasons, is that it's not even Barcelona's ability to spend money or fit players into their wage bill. It's that the market for some of these players isn't working. Like, I mean, I think that's again a testament to La Masia, that La Masia is able to produce 85%. I mean, I think that even brings up the conversation between Castro and Tommy Marquez. Like, Castro was the 23rd man, because Christensen was out all year, so really it was like the 23rd, 22nd man, because you're not taking on the goalkeepers either. So your 22nd guy in your squad, I mean, maybe he wasn't up to snuff this year, but I think the club is saying, like, okay, if he can get us 30 million on the market, which I think he can, 25 to 30 mil for Marc Castro, then Tommy Marquez can do 80% of that job or 85% of that job, even though that's a player that we have not seen this season. What, he's played 8 minutes in the first team this year, and the reports that Hansi Flick is going to promote him, which is again totally fine. Like, these kids are developing so quickly, so Hansi Flick is saying, hey, over the course of a year in training with me in Barça Athletic, like, at 18 this past season he wasn't ready, but at night or whatever it's 19, 20, whatever, like 1 year in their time is huge, as opposed to in the opposite direction, 1 year for Lewandowski as he ages can be huge as well, right? Like, that's exponential. Right. That's where that's where those limits are on the different bookends of your career. So let's kind of wrap this up. I know we'll have a shorter discussion than you and I could usually go. But I know there's a lot of nuance to it, and it's a lot of different directions. But my fundamental belief about Barcelona and winning the Champions League, even looking ahead to next season, I think if they fortify the squad, I think there is still potential with Hansi Flick in year 3 to be the best side in Europe and win a Champions League trophy the way that they're trying to do. I think I still hold out hope, and to say that, like, that philosophy is possible. You just need to reinforce the squad in select places that may not be in we're not just talking about a Champions League night in the semifinal and like the quality of a player. Like, the season adds up. The minutes, the total minutes add up, and Pedri has not looked himself for the last month. And why? It's because that Atletico Madrid Copa del Rey second leg just gassed the kid out. And then for Barcelona to win the Liga, he plays 90 against Espanyol, right? There is a world next season where that guy does not even play against Espanyol. Lamine Yamal still will, but like, there's a world where hopefully Lamine Yamal only has to go 70 against Espanyol. And that is what you have to do in the transfer window. That is what you're trying to reinforce, more than like who's your best 11 in a Champions League semifinal. Because I don't think any team has the answer to that. Like, I always say, this is like a thought experiment. Go back and look at the starting 11s from all these Champions League sides. You're actually going to notice, like, oh, this guy was injured or this guy was suspended or whatever. Like, it's never a perfect storm. No Champions League team, I think, ever has gone into a Champions League final and say, this is our best 11 that we have, that we've built over 3 to 5 years, and we have a perfect squad, and we're going to win the Champions League. That is just not reality. That's just not how it works.
I agree wholeheartedly. I think a flip on our philosophy would be a step backwards. I think ever since Cruyff took over as a manager, above all, the trophies speak for themselves. Not just Champions League, but league titles, Copa del Reyes. We have outdone and outwon Real Madrid by a significant margin in terms of, especially in La Liga, we have closed that gap significantly. And yes, in the knockout tournaments, there's a lot of outside or additional factors, I should say, that determine the outcome. Referee is one of them. But I'll oversimplify it. I'm convinced that if we add, and I don't know if Bastoni is that guy. I am not, as well versed as a lot of you guys probably listening, or Dan and other people here in this in the football sphere, to pinpoint the exact central defender that we need. Maybe it's a Virgil van Dijk. I don't know. Even though he gets injured a lot, I'm going to root for my home side here. I would love to see that happen. But let's just say that if we add the right central defender and a number 9, this team is winning the Champions League, or at the very least, making the final. I wholeheartedly believe that. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I just don't know who those guys are. Like, again, I think in what Barcelona needs
an Osimhen, and I'm gonna say Van Dijk. I don't know, or Bastoni.
He's past it. I'm so sorry. You got to find a new young Dutch defender to latch on to. Sorry.
I agree.
That little, so that those 2 little numbers next to a player's name, that's called an age, Diego. And so you got to find one in the 20s, and then 20s. Yeah. Yes.
Who's it? Keith Smits? Is it, or there's another young Dutch?
Well, Keith Smith is the attacking midfielder that I'm very, very high on.
He's an attacking midfielder. He's not even a central defender.
And I do appreciate the fact that you were able to plug another video I did months ago, actually, where I really did break down some of the best young footballers around the world. And unfortunately, the big center back I like there, Jeremy Jacquet, is already Liverpool. But I think when the next one's in line is Vuskovic, who right now is at Hamburg. Yes, he's right-footed, but like in terms of solving the problems, I actually do think he solves Barcelona's problems better than Bastoni does, and he's 20 years old, and you would be getting him right before he'd really be due those big wages. And I think for Barcelona and Laporta's style financially, yes, Laporta obviously his mandate. Well, I mean, he's got 5 more years now, and the way his mandate goes is that oh my gosh, what is it? And Rory Barlow had this term, and he's used it before, and it's really a great term. It's something about how like it's a cycle of good fortune, that good idea where it's like Laporta's like, why don't we just stretch ourselves to the very margins of our financial limits, but we're going to do that and we're going to bring in as many big names and try to win, and winning begets more money, right? And that's like, and that works for some. I mean, and you look at just business in general, if you get lucky and it works for you, then you go public on your IPO and it works out great. But obviously, there's a lot of companies that have gone bankrupt and it's gone bust or whatever. And of course, Barcelona is too big to go bust and all those different things. We talked about that financially before. But to the point of his strategy, right? Like I think Vuskovic does fit that strategy because you're kind of paying low, and by low I mean 45 to 50 mil potentially, but you're paying low on a player who might be part or going back to his side in Tottenham that is being relegated. You're taking a chance on a 20-year-old. He is right-footed, so he isn't like the perfect solution. But if he winds up turning out defensively to be what I think that he's capable of being, of what I've seen of him, then when you have to pay his wages and you have to reinforce him on 15 mil or whatever, he's going to earn those wages, and Barcelona will have also had the success on the field. It's why over the last 25 years, Pedri is, to me, the greatest gamble. And I wouldn't say it was that much of a gamble, but he had the best signing of any player. Like, yes, there's free transfers, but like for them to get him at 5 million plus bonuses, because the problem, like with those bonuses, if they have to pay all 25 to Las Palmas because he has won the Ballon d'Or, what does that mean? Exactly. You pay that, it's easy. So like, that's why Pedri to me is like one of the greatest signings in club history, just because to get him at that number. And they've had to pay like an extra 15 mil or whatever to Las Palmas, but Pedri has made the club by himself 20 to 25 million euros easy, right? So it's like, yeah.
I mean, he's so good that people call him a Mazia product. Like he was,
Yeah, I mean, this today there was a link to a 16-year-old kid, Palmeiras, and I can't tell you that I watch a ton of like youth football in Brazil, but Eduardo Conceição. There we go. I got it. We landed the plane. But anyway, like I'm seeing mixed reactions to him. Like, hey, some people watch him and like, yeah, he's whatever, empty calories. But like, that's because he's a 16-year-old Brazilian kid, right? Like Esteval was kind of like almost a guarantee, but like this kid isn't that. And then the number is 50 mil. So like, there's a difference there with like, to me, 50 mil to Vuskovic, who's 20 years old and playing for Hamburg, and what I've seen from him, and then 50 mil for a 16-year-old Brazilian kid, like. Right, there's risk and reward in paying for young talents, and that is also where the market is now. So, like Barcelona have done really well to grab Christensen, and I would even go back to like Gundogan. He wasn't necessarily a failure at Barcelona, even though the team results didn't match it, and Arturo Vidal when he came in. So Barcelona's done well in the last 5 years to get some like we'll say cheaper names, but I think where football is going now is like, yeah, those names are possible. Like Senesi is there and going to reinforce the squad. Is he really the total answer? Like maybe not, right? Like
what you think about Osimhen? I'm more and more convinced as time goes on that Osimhen is that guy to rejuvenate, his career, his move from Italy to Turkey and Galatasaray. Now he needs to go back to a big club. He's too good.
Right. I mean, he is obviously him being at Galatasaray at this point and being as good as he is like it's a why. And we all want to know why. So for him and a club of Barcelona, when he faces adversity, when he has that little bit of a goal scoring drought, what happens? And so far in his career, the answer is maybe not good things, but
I think it's his management, his agent.
I do think so too. And I think if Osimhen showed up banged in a bunch of goals. I mean, there's nothing about his game that would detract me from that kind of player. The only question again is why is he playing in Turkey right now in his prime? One, and then part two of that is if other clubs also believe that he shouldn't be playing in Turkey at this moment in his career, how much are they going to pay for him? Like he does feel to me like, I mean, and I know they just bought Chesko, that being Man United, but he does feel to me like a 75 million for a 30, what is he? I think he's 30 this year or something like that, or 29, 30. 75, 80 mil for that kind of guy, for some kind of club who wants to pay that. But again, that's out of Barca's price range. I'm wondering why he hasn't been linked to Barcelona either. I wonder if his management just straight up said like, no, you're not going to afford him. Like we want to put him on the market. And I don't know, but that's a good shout. I mean, and I think it's an experience. There's a lack of experienced players because you do have to pay for goals. That's the other thing I tell people. Like Ferran Torres still has a lot of market value because, I mean, the guy scored 20 goals and assists this season. Like the guy, like he scored goals. Like he's the second leading scorer in the Liga. Ferran Torres is the second leading scorer in the Liga.
I was like, he asked before the second leg, he's like, who's your number 9? I said, I'm going to put in Ferran Torres because he just scored 2 goals. It's all mental with this guy. He's got the capabilities. And he showed that in the game because it was crazy when Hansi Flick took him out. Not to rehash and go back to this second leg tie here, but he was, for me, putting in Lewandowski for Ferran Torres at that point was like, why are you doing that? He's out there doing exactly what we ask and want from him.
Yeah, and I always tell you about the pressure of Barcelona, the pressure of all these different things. Like
that's it. Lewandowski doesn't do that.
Right. Well, I mean, Lewandowski is also not to say built different, but like the reason why he's one of the greatest strikers of all time is because there are certain guys that are just like have that extra bit of I always will believe in myself. I always back myself. Like, and I say like for you on social media who are like sitting behind a computer and typing your thing, I'll tell you on Friday night at League, and I'll be honest, I'll be like open with you, Diego. I had 3 straight turnovers in the exact same way, and you know what I did? I took myself out of the game. Like I had only played like it was a shorter shift. Like usually I can go about 5 to 8 minutes before my hockey sub, but no, I had 3 straight turnovers, and I went, Dan, you are disgusting, and I subbed myself out on that next offensive point instead of having to make it better. I did have enough class not to force like fake an injury. Like sometimes I'll have such a bad throwaway where you got to be like, like you know what I mean? Like, oh, I jammed my finger or my toe. Like I think I might have slipped. Yeah. So, sometimes you force injury, but like, I'm not saying that I wasn't mentally up to it, but like, I had 3 straight turnovers and I went, I'm not the man for this moment. Like we were up 4 points when I entered the game. We were up 1 point when I exited the game. And I was like, in this moment, like maybe I don't have the sauce. Right. And that's okay. Cause you know what? I came back in after I had my water. I took a breath, watched my teammates succeed. I came back in the game when we were up by 2 and we won by 3. And I went, great.
Your MJ moment. Put me in.
Exactly. So I have my moment and, all right. With that, I think we've had our moment, Diego, and I appreciate your time. So yeah, in 2 weeks time, expect Diego and I back to again. You have to subscribe to both of us because these conversations continue in these bi-weekly conversations. So in 2 weeks time, we will be on D Spot, hopefully discussing I don't know the math yet, a La Liga title. I think that's gonna be our focus, right?
I would love a Pastillo in the Clásico. So if we could get the Guard of Honor, we could postpone that for the day of the Clásico in the Camp Nou. That would just be.
Will they get? I don't think they're going to give one though.
So the way I understood is if we keep picking up W's, then that's mathematically campeones el día del.
No. But I'm saying Real Madrid will not give one.
They won't give it. But there's, well, that's another topic for another day. We'll see. We'll cross that bridge when we get there, I guess.
Yeah. All right. So we'll be crossing those bridges, and I hope that you cross the bridge to subscribe again to both of us on our different channels. Even though, yes, Champions League is over and you feel like the season is done, there's still a lot to talk about. And of course, gearing up for the World Cup, gearing up for, again, the 100,000 subscriber show for me, and still plenty of content to go on. Again, this is also La Masia season too. So
just 92,000 to go in my case, but yeah, we're going for it.
I mean, I also had like 8 years on you, so there's a grind and there's a work to it. But no, we will all get there. We make good content, so I know y'all think that as well. So again, I also want to thank everybody who continued to support on Patreon in years past. I think people have just kind of given up and whatever, but for us to continue to do these things, we also do always ask for your financial support as well, and I appreciate everybody that continuing to support the both of us. All right, so without that, with that, win or lose, Champions League, whatever, we always say it, Forza Barca.